And I said, hey, yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, yeah, hey. I said, hey. No, seriously, what's going on? Grassy Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, a podcast where you don't, I do Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. I don't know, Grassi, and today we are going to be breaking down and predicting each game in Week 7 of the NFL. Last week, I went 8-6. However, let the record show that it should be 9-5. Here are the games that I got wrong. However, you will notice in last week's episode, I said that the Falcons would upset the 49ers. And for some reason, it did not go through. So it marked me that I got it wrong, and it's shenanigans, and it's chicanery.
I know he swapped those numbers. What a sick joke.
So yeah, I went 8-6 instead of 9-5. I'm 56-37 on the year. Again, should be 57-36. But we're still hanging around. I'm still within the top 250. Congrats to the people on top. So let's start off with the Thursday night game, which might not be atrocious. You got the New Orleans Saints taking on the Arizona Cardinals. All right, it might be atrocious. The Saints losing a heartbreaker to the Cincinnati Bengals, but you got to feel for the Saints right now. I mean, their best defensive player, Marshawn Lattimore, is out. Their team is riddled with injuries. They don't got any wide receivers, so they're on the struggle bus for right now. And the fact that it's a short week doesn't really help. They'll be thankful to be done after this week because then hopefully they can get some rest and get some people back. But for right now, it's trouble city for the Saints. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, good God, they could not do anything. Their offense is pretty frackin' terrible. However, DeAndre Hopkins coming back. Hollywood Brown gonna miss a good amount of time, but they did trade for Robbie Anderson after Robbie Anderson, I guess him just not knowing the mascot in Carolina just was a breaking point here. So maybe Robbie Anderson can help out a little bit. But the Cardinals got to get it going. They got no run game outside of Kyler Murray. He rushed for 100 yards, but other running backs aren't doing a whole lot, and their offense is just a stick in the mud right now. This is probably going to be a close game. I was leaning towards the Cardinals, but I'm thinking the Saints defense might be able to do just enough. Maybe they'll get one or two of those injured guys back, which would make a major difference. So I'm going to go with the Saints here to pull off the W in Arizona, but this is probably going to be another low-scoring game. Following that, a really intriguing game, you got the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. The Falcons, the birds. The Bengals, the cats. Mortal enemies meeting on the football field. The Falcons pulling off an impressive win in which they put together a complete game and didn't really have to worry about choking. That's weird. Mariota looked good. Defense looked good. A little surprising from the Falcons here, who again have been surprising people all frackin' year with how competitive they are. They should be number one in the NFC South, but Tom Brady got in the way there. Meanwhile, the Bengals kind of getting back on track. We just talked about that, getting the W over the Saints. Joe Burrow looking back like things are normal, but that's the problem. We said this about the Bengals before this season, which was like, oh, they're playing well. And then they go and they stink it up, and Zach Taylor's just like, I don't know what I'm doing. So this is probably going to be a really close game. This might be one of the better games of the week. So I'm actually going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals here. It is being played in Cincinnati, so I think they have a tiny bit of an edge there. But I would not be surprised if the Falcons did upset, but I'm going to pick the defending AFC champions to get the W here. Following that, you got the Detroit Lions taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Lions, they had a bye week. They didn't have to worry about anything. They just get to watch their division implode, and somehow the Vikings run away with it. They get to rock and roll, even though, the last time they played, they got shut out by the Patriots. Meanwhile, the Dallas Cowboys losing on Sunday Night Football against Philadelphia. A tough game for them in which they were able to kind of crawl back into it. That defense was able to contain Philly for a little bit, like in the third quarter. But Cooper Rush, forced to push the ball downfield, just did not work out for him. And they need Dak Prescott back quickly. The Lions, hopefully during the bye week, they got healthy, and I would not be surprised if the Lions are able to pull off the win here. Their offense has been pretty damn potent, besides, of course, against the Patriots. But again, I'm going to say a lot of that is because of the injury issues they've had. However, They are going against a very good defense in the Dallas Cowboys, and I think that's going to be just enough for them to get the job done. I imagine that the Cowboys are just going to burn a ton of clock and just run that ball down the Lions' throat. Will they be able to do that successfully? That will decide the winner of this game. I say yes. Cowboys get the W, but it will be a hard-fought game. Following that, you got a bit of deja vu. You got the Colts taking on the Titans, even though a few weeks ago you had the Titans taking on the Colts. The Colts coming off a big win against their fellow rival, the Jacksonville Jaguars, in which Matt Ryan was just like, sorry guys, I forgot how to play football for a hot second, and was lighting it up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Reason why? Their offensive line is better now. They started to fix things on the offensive line. Good. Still no Jonathan Taylor. We imagine he might be back for this game against the Titans. The Titans still atop that division, and they had a bye week last week, which they most definitely needed. This could be another close game. The Titans were able to win their first matchup against the Colts. However, I think they might split here. The Titans did sweep the Colts last year, but it's a new year. Colts, let's see if they could ride that momentum. I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts to win it, though the whole South is just a dumpster fire, so who knows. And then a game I shouldn't be nervous for, but I am. You got the Green Bay mother-loving Packers taking on the Washington Commanders. The Packers, their offensive line, they can't block for the run. They can't block for the pass. Aaron Rodgers is missing people. Their defense is choking it away in the second half. What did I miss? It was an ugly display in Lambeau Field against the New York Jets. Yep, I'm saying New York. And if they want to actually be competitive this season, they need to fix things and quick. Elton Jenkins needs to not be at right tackle anymore. Royce Newman needs to not be on the field anymore. They have the depth there. They have the talent there. They need to start performing, whether it's going to be on coaching, whether it's going to be on personnel. Things need to be fixed. Meanwhile, they're going to Washington, D.C. to take on the Commanders. The Commanders who got a win against the Chicago Bears this past Thursday in a really, really ugly game, but they got the W. Carson Wentz, however, injured hand. He's going to be out for a few weeks, and so they're going to get Taylor Heineke, who that might be a tougher matchup considering the Commanders gave the Packers a tough time last time that Heineke played against them. This is a game the Packers need to win. They're going to Buffalo the week after this, and they need to have all the good graces of the football gods on their side. I unfortunately think it's going to be a closer game than some might anticipate just because that's how the Packers are playing this year, but I'm going to pick the Packers to win, and if they don't, so help me God, or whatever the heck is down there. Then you got an NFC South showdown between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Carolina Panthers. Both teams losing. The Buccaneers losing against the Steelers. Mitch Trubisky coming in to save the day for the Steelers. And boy, oh boy, things do not look good with Tampa. The thing is, Tampa's still probably going to win their division. They have a nice bounce back game against the Carolina Panthers, who are arguably the worst team in football. I don't even know what string QB they're on right now. Robbie Anderson just got shipped off for a bag of beans. And the Panthers, yeah, they fired Matt Rule. That's probably going to be the highlight of their season. This should be a nice bounce back game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They most certainly need it to also maintain that division lead. I think they'll do so pretty easily. Buccaneers win. Then a couple weeks ago, this would have been an even more intriguing game because we thought the Jaguars were good, but you got the New York Giants taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The New York Giants, surprising everyone, they are 5-1 right now. They beat the Packers, then they turn around and beat the Baltimore Ravens, able to claw their way back and get the W. Brian Dable, I talked about this in Power Rankings, should be Coach of the Year. Saquon Barkley is playing well. Daniel Jones looks somewhat competent. Cats and dogs living together, it's complete and total pandemonium. Meanwhile, the Jacksonville Jaguars, after looking good the first couple of weeks, things have really started to fall apart with the kiddies. The Jags, yeah, it's rough. That defense did not look good against Indianapolis Colts. The offense struggled a whole bunch, and the week before that, Trevor Lawrence looked even worse. I'm going to pick the Giants to get the W here. I know it is being played in Jacksonville, so maybe the Heat will get after the Giants, but right now, the Giants are playing pretty damn good football, so I think they'll get the win. Following that, you got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Both teams having some pretty disappointing losses last week. The Browns losing to the Patriots, in which it was zapping time because Bailey Zappi absolutely destroyed them. Meanwhile, the Ravens choked away another lead in the second half. Stop me if you've heard this one before. This time, though, Lamar Jackson making a bunch of mistakes there, and it wound up costing them. This is an AFC North showdown in which the AFC North is pretty mid this year. One of these teams is probably going to win the division, but then again, the Bengals are still hanging around, so who knows? I'm going to pick the Ravens here just because I think they are the more talented football team. They just got to stop shooting themselves in the foot. Jacoby Brissett has been playing a lot better than a lot of people probably thought he would. Their run game is still good. But the Browns, they got defensive issues now. Again, I think the Ravens are going to be able to take advantage of it. If the Browns want to win, it's just going to be about handing the ball off. I'm going to say the Ravens get it in a close one, but I don't really have confidence in either of these teams. Then you got the New York Jets, still sounds weird, taking on the Denver Broncos. The Jets, as we talked about, due to a dominant defense, their D-line, their secondary, and a great run game behind Breece Hall, was able to destroy the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau. Meanwhile, the Denver Broncos lose an absolute heartbreaker in LA in overtime, in which Russell Wilson had moments, especially when they were doing like bootlegs with him and being able to get him out of the pocket, but their offensive line is definitely struggling. Their defense is the heart of that team, and unfortunately, the special teams kind of cost them the win this past Monday night. This could be a close game, but right now, just going off the momentum, I think I have to pick the Jets here. I think their run game is good, and while they are going up against a good defense, I think that D-line is going to destroy Russell Wilson on Sunday, and I think they're a better coached team right now. So the New York Jets, the good times keep on rolling for you this week. Then you got the Houston Texans taking on the Vegas Raiders. The Texans, they were on a bye last week, but it felt like a victory because Jack Easterby has finally been exercised. Is that going to help your team in the long run? Probably. Not the current play on the field, I don't think. But the Texans getting a big relief there. Meanwhile, the Raiders also coming off a bye week. The Raiders, things are sad. They had a close game with the Chiefs a couple weeks back on Monday Night Football. Almost got the W. Then Davante Adams is shoving people. It's just not good. Josh McDaniels is also just not a good coach. This could be a really close game. I think it's going to be a sloppy game. The Texans might surprise people and wind up getting the win here, but I am going to pick the Raiders. It is being played at home. They just have to get it together, commit to the run because that's what they're really good at, and hope Davante Adams doesn't shove anybody else. Raiders win. Then you got the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Chargers in what might be the surprise game of the week. The Seahawks getting it done. Kenneth Walker. Tom Grossi approves that message. Meanwhile, the Chargers, as we talked about, they were able to escape with their lives and an injured kicker to defeat the Denver Broncos on Monday Night Football. The Chargers losing their center, Will Clapp. We'll see how serious that is, but their offensive line, it needs help because what was a strength of that team has kind of been shred to pieces. Meanwhile, the Seahawks, strong run game. Geno Smith is looking solid. If the defense can kind of get back to where they were a little bit, they should be a pretty darn competitive football team in a division that is begging for somebody to win it. This could be the game of the week. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think Herbert and Geno Smith are going to sling it. I think the Chargers have a few more weapons than the Seahawks. I think Austin Eckler, of course, with Mike Williams, who had a very quiet night against a good defense. I think they'll be able to do a lot of damage against the Seahawks defense, and we'll see if Keenan Allen is going to be ready to play. So I'm going to pick the Chargers here, but I'll have my eye on this game because it might be a fun one. Then you got a Super Bowl rematch from a few years back. You got the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The Chiefs losing a heartbreaker at home against the Buffalo Bills. Patrick Mahomes throwing an interception at the end, which sealed it. They got to get their run game going, but the good news is they get Juju Smith-Schuster, who really contributed well in that game, and their red zone defense was pretty good. Meanwhile, the 49ers, they lost to the Atlanta Falcons, which is definitely going to hurt. Their coaching, their defense is kind of a little suspect right now, but they are a very injured football team. It's not going to help that you're going to have one of the best teams in the AFC coming to town. I think the Chiefs should be able to get this W, even though the 49ers defense is solid. The Chiefs should be able to take advantage just because they have so many weapons. Then on Sunday Night Football, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Miami Dolphins. The Steelers able to down Tom Brady last week. Good defense, and of course, the MVP, Mitch Trubisky, getting the W and completely shocking the Buccaneers. Meanwhile, the Dolphins almost able to come back against the Vikings, but just didn't have enough offensive firepower. Also, their defense not really forcing any turnovers since like the beginning of the year. However, the big saving grace will be Tua is expected to play and to be back, which is already going to be a huge lift for that offense that desperately needs it. These past few weeks have not been kind to the Dolphins. They're kind of falling in the AFC East. This should be a nice rebound game. They are playing against a good defense, but I think with Tua back, even though he might be a little bit banged up and a little bit rusty, they should have enough offensive firepower to get the job done against the Steelers. This might actually wind up turning into a very low-scoring game, and I just realized I'm streaming it. Goody. Dolphins win. And finally, talking about offensive showdowns, on Monday Night Football, you got the Chicago Bears taking on the New England Patriots. The Bears, good God, this close from winning against the Commanders. Darnell Mooney was right there near the end zone. Falls just short, unable to get it done. Their offensive line, struggling. Their play calling, baffling, in which they are just not handing the ball off all the time. I do not know. Justin Fields, not looking good. Meanwhile, the Patriots, we talked about them in rankings. They had been looking real great. Shut out the Lions a couple weeks ago, and now this past week, they took care of business against the Browns. Bailey Zappi, people in New England are going, wait a minute, is that Mac Jones or is that Drew Bledsoe because he's about to get replaced? Great run game, great defense, and Zappi tearing it up. The Patriots should be able to win this game. I think it might get really ugly with that Bears offense going up against this defense, and it might be like 40-0. Patriots win, Bears cry. Maybe Tom is happy? But let me know what you think down in the comments below. How do you think these Week 7 games are going to shake out? Let me know. You guys find me at TomGrassiComedy.com or TomGrassiComedy, all social media you see down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And a big shout and thank you to all the patrons over at patreon.com/TomGrassiComedy and the YouTube members. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grassi. And as always, go Pack Go.